Welcome to SHI's Research Breakdown, where we turn complex research into quick conversations that matter to your business. Today, we're continuing our conversation about Information Week's article, The Year Tech Reinvents Itself, 5 Predictions for 2026, and an article from Investor Place, Tech Predictions 2026, The Year Software Crawls into Physical Reality, both of which featured in the January 23rd issue of the Research Roundup LinkedIn newsletter. In the previous episode, we talked about how we can cut through the noise about shiny technology and focus on what's important. But there was more to say, so we've come back for a second episode on the topic. I'm Victoria Barber. I head up the Strategic Insights function here at SHI. And today I'm once again joined by my colleagues from SHI's Strategic Technology Office, Brad Pollard, Field CTO, and Marc Yoder, Field CISO, to discuss the need for reskilling and the elephant in the room, the fact that quantum computing has been completely omitted from the predictions and why that matters. So let's jump right into the conversation. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I asked ChatGPT to look at my blood test results and tell me what they meant. And I said, well, what did you actually put in there? She said, here are my blood test results, tell me what they mean. I said, well, what was the answer? And she gave it to me. I took those blood test results, put them in, and came back with something very, very different simply because of the way I use AI at work. I know that I've got to do more than say, look at my blood test results and tell me what they mean. The worrying thing is that the education isn't out there necessarily for people, particularly if they're not working in technology or specifically being told that this is a tool you need to use and trained to use it. They just think they can put the same question into it that they would have put into Google, but they'll get a definitely correct answer from it.
Doesn't that speak to that other thing there, this workforce reskilling concept there? And something I'm working on right now, that is one of the biggest trends that's out there in terms of hiring for basically the ability to learn, not a specific skill. And that's always been something that I hunted for was for folks that wanted to learn different things and that could, I mean, if you've worked in technology for the past 30 years, there's skills that I had that are absolutely useless right now. I mean, I can go build you a lamp stack, Marc, write an application on Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP.
Token Ring's coming back, Brad.
No, it's not.
It's coming back.
And it's when we started, the barriers to entry were way lower, right? You're learning HTML or you're learning how to configure a router. And I mean, skills that seem now like just very trivial, were employable skills 30 years ago versus now, you have to be a full stack AWS guy that knows everything from top to bottom. And how do you get out of college and do that? One of the things that's never on when we talk to a lot of our customers in terms of their strategy for the coming year is you ask them all the time, where's your training pillar? How are you training your people? How are you going to have the athletes that could run these plays?
And also, what are they recruiting for? And as you said, you're recruiting for ability to learn. But a lot of jobs in technology now insist that you have a degree in some kind of computer science related discipline. And yet I know I'm not alone in having spent my career in tech without having that technical education. I have a degree in English literature and modern and medieval languages. Doesn't necessarily seem relevant, but what it did do was teach me to learn. And that was, for me,
Absolutely
what university was about.
Should we tell you who we are?
Yeah, go on.
I'm the guy with a psychology degree.
I have an undergraduate philosophy degree. So yeah, but even the university model, if you're at university for 4 years, how significantly has the tech market changed over a 4-year period? So the ability, I think at this point, I look for university graduates to have a solid foundation upon which to build. And then, like you say, the ability to learn and curiosity to continue learning. And maybe there's a sub-conversation about certain fields encourage that continued learning. I continue to learn. Brad informed me recently that there's a state called Delaware.
I know, it's always about Delaware.
But I mean, there is also, if we're talking about reskilling and that takes you to recruitment, Do you need a degree to move into this industry? Is that actually the most useful thing you can have? Or are there other experiences that matter? Our industry experience is probably as important, if not more so, than our understanding of the technology. Because if you're talking about AI to somebody in manufacturing and you're talking about AI to somebody in financial services, your understanding of the industry is going to make a bigger difference to the conversation than anything else.
No, that's a great point, and I tend to use athletic, analogies quite a bit. It really depends on what the need of the organization is, but I think the ability to play multiple positions certainly makes you more marketable.
I'll use to extend what Mark's saying. I went to a Jesuit high school, and they really stress being well-rounded. Learning the arts, learning the sciences. I've been a musician since I was 15 years old. I have a degree in psychology. I work in technology. Those diverse experiences overlap, and I talk about being in rock bands and learning how to collaborate with people. Right? There's give and take, especially in a creative endeavor. And, "Oh, I have this idea. Well, it sounds better like this," or "No," and you teach each other. I mean, I'm the worst musician in my current band by far, and they're always teaching me how to be a better musician. And the critique, if you can listen to and collaborate, that experience definitely translates over to the enterprise. When I would hire, for certain roles, I never looked at degrees because lots of times guys would come in with military backgrounds. Guys with military backgrounds have discipline and operational skills that I didn't get from my undergraduate education. So they taught me their discipline and I learned from them. And then I taught them what I know. In an environment where you're teaching and learning and there's a push and pull, those are the most successful organizations. I think I've had successful organizations because we were learning organizations. I was teaching my staff, they were teaching me, and I think one of the things that I think about all the time about when I became a CIO was the job was no longer to be the best engineer. It was to go find the best engineers.
Brad, I think that ties into resiliency. When we were going back to resiliency, your resiliency as an organization, I think, is very much empowered by people understanding multiple disciplines, right? So back to your point, the ability to stop, to collaborate and listen, I think are all very important. I think that's why the people that I know who have been successful at any level, both mentor and are mentored to this day. I have several mentors. And I think that's important. So one of the ways to build resiliency in your organization is to mentor and to be mentored. Never stop learning.
Did you just vanilla ice us?
I try to drop something in for the people. I do it for the gram.
So when we were looking for the trends content for the research roundup, it was quite hard to find things that weren't just all saying the same thing. There was a lot of AI in there, obviously. But I think, Mark, you've got a point to make about what's missing from these trends reports.
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus is on AI, and I would say that the vast majority of the energy and the conversation around AI and AI is valuable if you understand what you're trying to do with it and you have a targeted case. Now, I think what I don't hear people talking about that concerns me specifically as in the security area is quantum. Like it's the Y2K of our era. Only the difference is it's real and the clock is ticking. And I really don't see people having that conversation. So I think quantum is a much larger, broader, more significant conversation because it affects everything from the trust of your organization. I think it hits us where most organizations are vulnerable. It's going to become a compliance and regulatory risk. I mean, the regulatory frameworks are going to build to include quantum. I mean, everything from business continuity to critical business systems to supply chain and vendor risk and reputational risk. And I really don't hear people talking about it. I mean, Brad, are you hearing conversations about quantum at all?
Very few people have asked, and they're like to your point about Y2K, right? There's Q day. I mean, that's a thing that they're looking at 2030, right? And mathematical bedrock is gone, right? The impact of cybersecurity and encryption, way above my pay grade. I'm no mathematician, and this is something I'm going to have to research in depth to even be able to talk about intelligently, because right now it's so above sort of anything I've ever done.
So, do you think the reason people aren't talking about it is because it is mathematically so difficult to understand, and they maybe feel that if they don't understand it, then they can't deal with it? Whereas maybe they just need to understand the implications of it rather than actually understanding it.
I'll let the philosophy major address superposition.
No, I mean, I think people just kind of vapor lock when you have this conversation. The reason is it's too big. There aren't people having clear conversation. There are few people having clear conversations about what it is and how to fix it. There doesn't seem to be any urgency in it. It's not the hot item. It's not the pressing urgent item. You talk about, urgent versus important sometimes. And this is a very strategic conversation. And it hits us in an area where we're really not even prepared to give an answer. Where is our data? What does it look like? How is it protected? Where is it moving? And so I don't think we even have the numbers in a lot of circumstances, or a lot of instances rather, to answer the question. So I think the response comes to just kind of bury our head in the sands. I'm really not having conversations, even as a CISO, about organizations solving this issue.
I mean, again, this is me reading this because it's a cursory understanding that I have of quantum computing. But basically, the threat is this, they say, breaking the mathematical bedrock. Shor's algorithm. This is the primary weapon running on sufficiently powered quantum computer. It can solve the factoring problems behind RSA, ETC, Delphi-Hyman in hours rather than billions of years,
Yeah.
right? That's not insignificant.
And I will throw something out. If there's one thing that I would want all of our listeners to understand when it comes to quantum, it is not a future event. Q-Day is in the future, but we're seeing data mining now. I can farm the data now and break it later when the capability is there, right? So this isn't a future event where you get ready closer to the end, which we all know how that works. I mean, some people can. But the challenge is that the risks, the cyber risks around quantum exist right now. So this data that you don't know where it exists is already being farmed for the day when the capability to break it comes later, the cryptography.
Yeah, and I think this has come up in a couple of the episodes we've done on cybersecurity topics in the past, is that the harvest now, decrypt later. But the only thing that has stuck with me is that I do know that my understanding of quantum mechanics is very quantum in the way that it works, because I both understand it and don't understand it at the same time.
I see what you did there.
Well played.
I know. It isn't easy, particularly for somebody who's not necessarily mathematically inclined. And I don't think anybody's going to find it easy if they think they need to understand exactly how it works. The important thing is, as you said, Mark, is they understand that it is something they need to be addressing now, and they get the help and support. And that's back to the partnerships and collaboration piece of it. They go and find the people who understand it enough to be able to find the link between their problem and the solutions that are out there, and come up with a plan.
No, I think that's perfectly said. I don't think there's any need to understand quantum. I certainly don't understand it as a CISO, not to the depth that the cryptographers are, that I need to fix the problem. But again, as Brad and I always say, it's never a technology problem, right? Never. So the problem isn't that people are coming up with the wrong answers for Q-Day. The problem is they don't have an answer for Q-Day, right? This isn't on the radar for many organizations. So that'd be a question to answer. Do you know what the plan is, and who's working on it within your organization?
The harvest now, decrypt later thing is terrifying.
Yeah.
Because there's been exfil, right? People have exfiltrated data that's encrypted, and people aren't worried about, oh, it's encrypted, but it's sitting somewhere in a data lake for somebody to decrypt later. I mean, that's
And I know we were talking about this certainly back in 2023, because I included it in some sessions that I did at some events. So it's not as if it hasn't been on the radar, and burying our heads in the sand is not going to make it go away.
If I were looking for a quick fix, and I say this tongue in cheek, it would be to quadruple your CISO's budget. That's a great place to start.
Is that going to be enough?
It's a good start. We'll go from there.
I've thoroughly enjoyed these conversations with Brad and Mark, and I hope they give you the flavour of the conversations that we have internally and with customers. I can safely say that we'll be hearing more from Brad, Marc, and hopefully the rest of the Strategic Technology Office in the near future as we try to help you navigate 2026. Thank you both so much for joining us for today's insightful discussion, and thank you to our listeners. You can find more episodes of the Research Breakdown wherever you get your podcasts, and sign up for the Research Roundup on SHI's LinkedIn page. SHI Media, you heard it here.